Hello from me, Lazar Hristov. Welcome to the next lesson in the series on creating a website from scratch. As you know, right now we are already working on my third, or second, book, let's say, on the topic, which I talked about here, masterful techniques in adaptive and responsive design. Let me show you the cover. Actually, that was the working title written on the site. And the original one will be Mastery Techniques in HTML5 and Adaptive plus Responsive. Design, or creating a website from scratch minus part the second. So, let's move on. We've reached the next part of Chapter 1, Ways to Write and Structure Media Queries in CSS. We'll look at the three main approaches used in CSS media queries. These are max, min, and a combined approach with min and max. The max approach is the most popular and most commonly used approach. I use it myself very often. It is suitable for the so-called desktop-first design. You write the base style for a desktop screen, and through the breakpoints in media queries it adapts to smaller screens. That is, it works from large to small, or from wide to narrow. Here's an example with 2 breakpoints. You see, for example, here we have 1 heading and 1 paragraph. And it's very important, the order matters. This refers to the order of the entire block. I mean, for example, whether the block with 768 should be higher, or whether the one with 480. Or, if we swapped their places, for example, the latter would overwrite the site in mobile view. Therefore, this approach should be followed from large to small. First from the larger breakpoints to the minimum ones. The approach with min is the opposite. Naturally, it starts with a mobile style and builds for wider screens. It's used in what is called a mobile-first approach. In this case, it will now be written like this. 480 it will be first, then 768. And here the order matters. Of course the order must be respected. And a combined approach, which is min plus max. This method allows us to write styles only for precisely specified ranges. This avoids overlapping queries. No longer matters. Here's an example. Let's say here we want to be in a very specific range. And you see, right, we start at 480 to 480, then from 481 to 768, and finally from 769 to 992 pixels. This approach creates the most clarity, but requires more writing and careful planning of ranges. The choice of approach, of course, depends on the specific project. For educational purposes and a clearer structure, it is better to use only the max approach, but to follow the strict order from larger to smaller, and from wider to narrower. For complex layouts with more steps, a combined approach with precise ranges may be more appropriate. And besides everything else, for learning purposes, and for beginners, I recommend using Max, as it is the easiest and clearest to understand, and the combined approach we can use a little later, when we have already advanced, entered the subject and are working with more complex projects. That's all for this lesson. Best regards.